Hey everybody, hoping to blow your mind with some science, same way my mind was blown. I want to talk about the nature of reality. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying some of this stuff is way the hell out there, and I can promise you, no, I'm not high. This stuff is just really, really just abstract. It's also sort of difficult to even sort of conceptualize as I'm talking. So, just heads up, I hope I can keep my head level while I'm talking about this stuff, but it is very, very abstract kind of stuff. So, hopefully, this makes sense. Here we go. So, the nature of reality. I'm going to start this at the high level to say that what we perceive as reality has a lot of moving parts. And I'm not necessarily going to get into all of those parts right now, but suffice it to say, all of the moving parts break down into two pieces or two distinct categories. There is the external and the internal. So our external reality is what comes in via our five senses. And then there's internal, which comes from our subconscious, our emotions, and our sense of space-time, right? So as we are processing things, in real time, our brain is combining the input of all five senses, and it is not only combining all five sensory inputs, it's also immediately accessing memory, subconsciousness, emotions, sense of space-time, and what is known as your identity state. Identity state is worth mentioning briefly in the sense that when you go to work, you have your work hat on. Like if you're a customer service representative, you wear your work hat. When you're a cashier hat. My mother was a teacher, so she used to always say she was wearing the teacher hat. Then I got to wear the mother hat. Then I got to wear the parent hat. We all have these different hats that we wear. So these different personas that we go with. So that's your identity state. So depending on what state you're behaving in, it sort of has an impact. But yeah, in real time right now, you're hearing my voice, you're seeing my face on the phone that you're feeling with your hands, and you're hearing all the background noises going on, and your air conditioner right about now. And if you didn't hear your air conditioner, you heard something, chirping birds, or I don't know, bubbly fish if your head's underwater. Anyways, so we are a combination of internal and external structures is the word to use for that. So we have structures in our head. Now, all of this composes our individual reality. And one of the things about the individual reality is as we process it, once we process, we immediately send output back out to our environment. Now, this can be things in terms of body language, communication, speech, dirty looks, right? So, I mean, you see somebody walking by and, they're looking like they're worthy of being judged. What do? You look at them and you're like, right? So we send these outputs back out into the world, and then those outputs in turn can elicit responses from other people, so then we get feedback from the external world, and that feedback comes back in. So not only are we processing things internally and externally, we also have feedback loops internally and externally, all in real time. Now, I don't know if many of you have background experience in engineering, but there's a type of engineering called feedback control systems. And what this means, I'm going to keep it real simple. Your air conditioner or your central heating and air, your thermostat is a feedback control system. Because what happens, you have the thermostat that's constantly measuring the temperature of the air. And whenever the temperature gets too high, the air conditioner kicks on, and as it's pumping out cold air, is constantly measuring the temperature of the air and receiving feedback from the environment Once the temperature is low enough, then it cuts off. Now, that's a very, very basic scenario for a feedback control system. And if you are an engineer, then you may call me out and say that I'm cheating on this one a little bit. You may or may not consider it a true feedback control system, but for the sake of explanation, let's just go with that. So, but all that being said, that's your individual reality. Okay. Now there's something else called consensus reality, which is cultural. So, for example, if you go to a church and you're in a church and you're listening to the sermon, everybody there in the church all has a consensus reality. They all believe in whatever religious doctrine is being taught. The one I'm most familiar with, Christianity, is the belief in God's presence, that God is there, that Jesus is the Son of God, etc. Those are all consensus realities, right? You can also see consensus reality in magic shows when they do illusions. Everybody in the audience is all part of a consensus reality, and the way illusions and mentalists and magicians work is they create an illusion that violates laws of the consensus reality. So everybody is seeing things that should not happen, that are physically impossible, and yet there they are, and it's a violation of consensus reality, and that's what makes it so impressive. So in our personal lives, where does consensus reality come from? Well, I got to roll the clock back to before smartphones, and I think most of my viewers were alive before smartphones. I hope none of you viewers are like 10 or 12 years old. But before smartphones, when we just had regular phones and everybody just hung out, there's the popular phrase and expression that says, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, which is a problem for me because I don't have 5 friends. So however many people you hang out with, that they're the basis of your consensus reality. So we kind of sort of, when we are interacting with people, that feedback control system that is ours, we end up tuning our realities based on the feedback that we get from people. And if we're going through the masses, this is one of the problems of being a rock star. Not that I really know it firsthand, but when you're a rock star and you're on the road touring, and all day, every day, all you're doing is just meeting new people. And maybe you've had a period in your life where all you had to do was just meet new people. It starts to get really exhausting and confusing, and your mind starts to break down, and you start to feel like you're going crazy. And you start to feel like you just can't really make sense of the world, because when you start meeting too many new people, your consensus reality cannot stabilize. Right? So we have our consensus reality, and it's tuned to the 5 people closest to us, and we become the average of those 5 people. Now, what happens during emotional manipulation is slowly but surely over time, we become isolated through a narcissistic abuser. So now, all our feedback control, slowly but surely, we are no longer having a legitimate consensus reality. They are providing that for us. And then we become very codependent on them, because now we're hanging out there in the middle of La La Land, for lack of a better term. I don't know, La La Land, Neverland, Wonderland, Imagination Land if you're a South Park fan. So now this is where I want to bring in what I feel the problem today is. So that's how it was before smartphones. Now, with smartphones, it becomes an even bigger problem, because now, what do we have? What impacts our consensus reality are the 5 people closest to us. Now, we've all heard of this game called the telephone game, where you get kids sitting together in a circle, and you start with one sentence and you whisper this sentence into one kid's ear, and then they have to turn around and whisper it into the next kid's ear, and it goes around the circle, and by the time it comes back around, the sentence that went in is not the sentence that came out, right? Now think about this for a second. That is in about as that's about as reliable as it could possibly be, to have everybody all in one room, physically present, and actually there in real time, listening to a sentence, turning around and telling it to somebody else, and then they tell it to somebody else. Everybody's all together. When everybody's all together, physically present in the same room, we still cannot communicate in a consistent and constant manner, let alone put some distance between us. You see where I'm going with this. So you put some distance between us, communication breaks down even further, but smartphones have taken it even further, with the fact that Google and YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Amazon, all the big companies, which, by the way, if you look up the actual architecture of the internet these days, it's not a free and open internet. All of the hardware and all of the networks, it is really consolidated. It's a lot smaller than you think. It is way smaller than you think. But yeah, when you get on what you think is the internet, you're not actually getting on the internet anymore. What you're getting on is you're getting into the mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? Show me the things I want to see. That's your phone. And yes, you are that fairy tale person saying, mirror, show me what I want to see, when you use Google. Two people, if you don't believe me, get two people, sit next to each other, and just do search terms on different political candidates. You'll see different search results as the person sitting next to you. No two people will have the same sets of search results. It's nuts. Facebook is the same way. You know, they have an algorithm that determines what you see and what you don't see. Same thing with Amazon. Hey, customers also bought this. But with everything, with YouTube suggestions, they suggest things that you might want to see. They censor things too, politically. They are very politically motivated. That's a story all on its own. So what am I saying here? I'm saying consensus reality breaks down. Consensus reality is what stabilizes our individual realities. See, with our individual realities, when we do not have stable connections with people, 5 other humans who are, you know, we're tight-knit with, and we're close, when we don't have that stability, consensus reality becomes increasingly unstable. And a destabilized consensus reality destabilizes the individual reality. And when the consensus reality shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, then the feedback loops for your individual reality, the changes become increasingly severe. And so, to get back to the air conditioner example, what this results in, imagine running an air conditioner in an increasingly smaller and smaller house, right? And let's say that it takes an air conditioner 1 minute to turn on and 1 minute to turn off, because most of them, they take temperatures over time and they don't just immediately flip on and off. What happens when you put a giant house-sized air conditioner onto something like a shoebox? Well, then you get extreme changes in temperature. And just like you get extreme changes in temperature with an air conditioner, the individual reality has extreme changes in what they perceive to be real and what they perceive to be not real, etc. I'm out of time. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next video.